On November 12th, 2025, Valve released 3 new devices to the world. Now they have 4 different hardware products that they will be selling. But the main one I want to chat about today is the Steam Machine. This is a fully fledged, powerful PC to make it easier for you to play on the TV, your PC and Steam games. So here's why I think this is a big deal. Here is why Valve is changing the whole ecosystem on what it means to be a gamer. So basically, they used to have this product before. So the Steam controller and the Steam Machine have been products that they have released before. The Steam controller being that controller that has little joysticks and has little thumbsticks that let you move around. It's kind of to simulate a mouse, be something similar to that. I've heard this one is really cool for Mario Galaxy. Thinking I might do a playthrough with that controller or with the new controller. Definitely with the new controller because this looks sweet. I will definitely be playing Mario Galaxy with that one. And the console being something that released in 2015 was much harder for it to compare and combat with console gaming at the time. But I think in this new day and age, it could be huge what Steam is doing. So they're marketing it as a PC. It's not a console. That is the big thing that we need to look at here. So it is 6 times faster than the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck already being this great product, they're now releasing something that is even greater for the masses. Basically, the Steam Deck is really good. It runs SteamOS. It does Linux gaming. Here you go. We're going to give you something that's even better, even greater. And we're going to give you all the software, all the hardware. We're going to run the same operating system, but it is going to be much more powerful. And it's going to be something that is going to be present in your home. And it can function as a PC and as a game console, which I think is bizarre and really cool. I feel like in this day and age, it really makes sense for this to work. With the rise of PC gaming being like more closer to console gaming getting more expensive. Taking a look at the specs of this device, so we can see how it compares to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. With it being, it's not as powerful as the other ones. So we only have 6 cores, 12 threads for the Steam Machine. PS5, 8 cores. Xbox Series X, 8 cores. Xbox Series S, also 8 cores, right? See, the GPU, it is usually a integrated GPU with these systems, but it looks like, same amount of RAM. This Steam Machine, big thing to note here is that it's its own dedicated GPU. It's not something that it's like an APU where it's combined CPU and GPU. They put it all together in one, similar to what you get in a laptop these days. But they're separating it. So what's really interesting to see is that it is less powerful than what modern gaming is providing. I'll talk about that in a second. So that is kind of the specs of what we're looking at. It's only 512 gigabytes, but you could do 2 terabyte. I don't know too much about the expandability of how that will look like when the console releases. So this is kind of interesting to see that Valve is kind of taking a slower approach to it, not being as much a powerful system. And the reason why I think is because we got to look at the cost of the system. Most likely because they can sell these as PCs. You can sell these as PCs that you can put any firmware on it. You can put Windows on it if you really wanted to. You can put a different distro of Linux onto it, right? And you could sell that to enterprise people. With consoles, how it works is you have a console, you sell it for a specific price, but you sell it lower than what it actually costs you to make it. And that way you can sell your games at a higher price point because people are buying it for the games. Something that Nintendo does all the time, something that Xbox has done, and something that PS5 has also done before. So it becomes a little bit different with the way they market their product. And I think the reason why they went for a lower model on the cores is so that they can compete with the match and the price that competitors are doing. So here's one list that I found online that kind of simulates the same PC specs as the Xbox and the PS5. But this simulates exactly what the Steam Machine should look like. So we have a 6-core processor, CPU cooler, 16 gigs of RAM, 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD, and then their GPU, they haven't been specific too much, but it's sort of around an RX 7600, also similar to RTX 4060 is what I've heard. Not crazy powerful, but it does get the job done for a lot of indie games. So this specific build I found online is about $712 US. The one I kind of came up with, I found it to be around 917. You can see a little bit of a differences here. This is a Ryzen 5 7600. This is a Ryzen 5 8500G, which has an integrated CPU. They don't need that. Not too much of a difference. So, but the main thing is like I have my RAM. This is some Kingston Fury RAM. This is a Patriot NVMe. I picked more of the normal ones that you're going to see Corsair. So the price could fluctuate depending on what the specs that they are choosing. One thing I think that this is more of an accurate comparison to, and something we can see, is this framework desktop. So this is running the AMD Ryzen AI Max 300 series. This is an integrated CPU and GPU combo. But as you can see, the performance of the system is much greater than what we're seeing from the Steam machine. 6 cores, 16 threads, 32 gigabytes of unupgradable LDDR5 RAM, so about double. So that's why you see a greater price point here. Same amount of storage. We have no operating system because we don't use Windows, we use Linux here. But you can see that this is a higher price range if they do a more performant console. If they decide to release something like the Steam Machine 2 later in the future, could be something like this. Hopefully the price does go down a bit more. The Steam Machine, people are thinking it's gonna be around 700. I've seen as low as 400. I've seen as high as 1,100. It definitely will make or break the system if it's gonna fail or if it's gonna succeed. I think going with the choice of lower performance, but giving gamers the capability to do whatever they want, and it's a tiny PC, I think gives them the advantage, and that will help them match the same price as console gaming. And for people that aren't really like gaming AAA games and they're using all the systems capability, and if you're already doing that, you're already gonna have a PC, so that's kind of their target audience I'm seeing. PS5 is $499. PS5 Pro is $700. Xbox Series X $500. So it's kind of around the range. They are going to be a little bit more expensive, but we'll see if the software and what they're providing gives consumers a reason to go, oh, I want to get the Steam machine. So the main thing that comes with this is SteamOS, is their Linux-based operating system that puts them apart and differing from consoles. So consoles, they're basically PCs, but they have a different operating system. They have their own proprietary operating system, which the company provides. Sony makes the PlayStation OS, Microsoft makes the Xbox OS, right? And Steam makes Steam OS, and it is a Linux-based operating system. They've really put a lot of work in. It's gotten really popular because of the Steam Deck, and it's really tried to they've pushed a lot for Linux gaming to be the new forefront, because, Microsoft makes their mistakes with Windows. People don't want to game on a Mac. It's expensive, right? Valve has been pushing a lot on Steam OS and Linux gaming. I also want to give a shout out to Omarchi. Basically, it's a great developer environment for Arch Linux. You install it with one click. It has its own ISO, boom, and you're running with Arch Linux right away. Everything is configured for you. But it has a lot of support for NVIDIA graphics card, which is the main thing that SteamOS is kind of lacking right now. And we're hoping that they push more for that. That's going to be a big determination to see, oh, is it worth it to buy a Steam machine? Or do I just make my own and put SteamOS on this? So I think Omarchi is going to be doing cool stuff with that. Bazzite is also another one that's doing things with that. So we'll see how much the Steam machine has to offer and how it compares in price. If it's a good deal on price, it makes more sense to buy a Steam machine. They've also powered up a lot with Proton. So Proton is a layer that says, hey, we're going to take this game that was made for Windows and we're going to convert it into this Linux system. So now you can play your Windows game on Linux. They've been pushing a lot for that, and it's completely open source, which is really cool. And from some results, we've seen that Linux has really increased because of SteamOS. So Game on Linux is now accounting for 3% of players. This is really cool because, as you can see, Windows had a huge portion of the market. They have 94% of people on Steam are using Windows, which is crazy, which makes sense why everyone is compiling and making their games for Windows. And that's why we need Proton to be a thing. We can't just be like, oh, we'll just make it for Linux. No, there's no market for it, right? What's really funny about this one is, like, people switch from Windows 10 to Windows 11, but some people switch to Windows 7 for some reason. I don't know. Windows 7 people, like, keep it up. You guys are doing great. Like 0.09% of the percentage. That's great. OS X has grown a little bit as well, going up to 0.34%. But then the big one here being Linux, going up 0.41%. Now, you don't see here SteamOS. You do see things like Arch Linux, which is what I use. I use Arch, by the way. And also popular distros like Linux Mint, Fedora, and Ubuntu, of course. So those have been going up in stocks because of, Windows being Windows and SteamOS being a big popular thing. We can see down here, SteamOS actually contributes to 30%, almost 30% of the people that are using Linux. And then, you can see other ones like Ubuntu, which is a popular distro, Bazzite being a popular one as well, and Arch being one of the main ones that are contributing to this. I think Valve is doing great pushing Linux and putting it on the map. I'm not going to say it yet, but it could be the year of Linux in 2026. And the main thing I want to chat about here is like the thing of having Linux being a gaming setup is not something new that companies have tried to do. The big one that comes to mind is the PS3 had an option way back in the day, back in 2010. Wow, that feels like a long time. They had an option that was basically said, hey, we're going to introduce another OS onto your PS3 so you can have PS3 software, PS3 operating system, and Linux operating system, which was really cool. And then they decided to remove it. And they removed it, well, because, a lot of people were using their PS3s for hardware stuff. Here is the United States Air Force that decided to put together 2,300 unit PS3s to be their own kind of server, which is really cool that you can do that. But also introduced a lot of security risks for Valve, for Sony with hackers. And so then they removed it because they said, hey, it makes things harder for us to manage security. Eventually, as we see here, like they did manage to still hack the PS3. So removing it made people mad, and then they just hacked it and they lost anyways, right? It was not something that worked out. So it's really cool to see Valve embracing and going, hey guys, we're going to run on Linux. We're going to give you guys all the power to install whatever you want. You want to install whatever you want to do. They're giving you all of the capability, which is really interesting that more companies haven't done that. Take a look at Nintendo. Nintendo does not even let you have a web browser. It's like not even a thing. You need to change your DNS settings, and like they don't allow it because they're so concerned about like piracy. They have their reasons. I'm not Nintendo, but I personally think Steam is doing a great approach here to be like, hey, we're going to give you all the capability. We're going to market this as a PC so anyone can use it however you like, but it's made for Steam and we're going to optimize it for Steam. And of course, we know Steam, they give you sales. They throw sales out everywhere, right? It makes sense for people to go to Steam because they have all their games there. It just makes it a nice home for you to come to and removes the need for piracy, removes the need for having to set up different drivers and stuff. So that's something that Valve has always been great at. As you can see, their open source contributions, right? They've been doing great with that. So yeah, the Steam Deck runs a version of KDE Plasma, which is the desktop environment for Linux. So it's a computer. If you're a computer person that just likes to, go on Google, have Discord with your friends, you can have all that, right? The Xbox, I think more companies might be adding Discord stuff, but you have to use your own proprietary chat. Nintendo Switch has its own chat, right? So this is really cool that they kind of just say, there's other people that do stuff. Like, it's not just us, and we're going to embrace that. We're going to give you all the capability to do that, which is really, really cool, in my opinion, right? And so you can do a lot of different cool things. You can you can play Minesweeper. You can there's all this cool stuff that you can do that they're just embracing and they're going, what, this is a PC. We're going to give you all the access to do, right? I found these two Reddit posts which are really funny. It's like, well, emulation is going to be possible in the Steam machine. I don't know if that's going to be a thing because it's just like its own console. It's like, no, it is a PC. It is a PC, so you have full access to it, right? With Steam, it is cool that the software they're giving all to you, which I think is what people like to see these days. And I think Valve is really doing great at that. Another one is like, will Steam Machine be able to be used for streaming storage server? Can I run my own NAS on Steam Machine? It is a PC. It is a PC. It is a little ITX build. It is smaller than the Framework desktop, which is actually tiny. But it is just a PC. You could run your own media server. You could run your own web server. You can do some crazy stuff with emulation, right? You have the full capability to do that, and you have this great system that is built for Steam, which dominates the PC gaming market, right? If you want to install Epic Games Launcher, you can do that too. But I think this is really cool about Valve, and I think Mr. Gabe Newell is doing an amazing job with what the company is doing. I think the big thing we're going to see here is the main contributor to this is how is Valve going to price this thing? If they price it as something really low, great. But they need to have something sustainable so they can not only compete with consoles, but also give you an option to go, hey, this is something that is going to compete with other operating systems like Bazzite and things like that, so that people will install SteamOS, they'll have their hardware. And, they've done this in the past. They need to show, too, like with the Steam Deck, they've really shown that SteamOS and Linux gaming is super viable. The controller looks sweet. I'm not much of a VR person. I can't comment too much about that. but from what they have, it looks really amazing. And I'm really excited to see how Valve decides to go about this in the future. And I'm really excited to see the future of Steam Machine in 2026, which is going to be the year of the Linux PC if they price it well and everything goes well. Let me know if you guys are also interested in that, in the Steam Machine, and are pumped because you have that flexibility to have all your software, even if you're not tech savvy. I'm just curious. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys updated on news about the Steam Machine.